So now we're getting close to the target marks. Lifting here at 5 o'clock. Now I'm ready to lift the last one before 5 o'clock. Lift that one like usual and crank around. But now we're going to start doing something different. Take a moment to adjust your heel forks up again. And now we're going to lift one, the last one before 5 o'clock, and we're going to push down the 2 needles on the other side. But we need to tuck the latches as we push them down. These are the 2 needles we need to push down, and we're going to use the pick tool, the sharper one. Pull the needle forward with your finger and insert the tool into both the stitches. Then make sure the latch is down and push the needle down so that it tucks the latch into the stitches. Okay. Again, on this one, insert the tool into both stitches, push the needle down, make sure it went all the way in, and then you're ready to crank again. And again, we're going to continue. Lift one on this side, and now you're going to lower 2 on the other side. You always know which one you're lifting because like usual, like we've been doing, it's the last one that was knit that still has the working yarn attached. And then it's 2 on the other side. And then crank back around. There's one way that you can avoid having to tuck the latches, which I'll show you next. So you're going to lift one on the side with the working yarn. We're going to push down 2 on the other side. We're going to wait to do that. There's a space right here at 12 o'clock where there's a gap between the V-cams, and you can push the needles down, and you don't have to tuck the latches if you push them right there. Okay. So again, I'll show you one more time. You lift the needle with the working yarn. We're going to push down the next 2. I'm going to change the angle so you can see better. So this is the needle that I lifted. Still watching to make sure the first and last stitch knit. And then these are the 2 that need to be pushed down. So there's a gap right at 12 o'clock in between the V-cams where you can push them down and you don't need to tuck the latches. I admit I don't usually do that because I worry about forgetting to, like right there, I worry about forgetting to push the needles down. So I don't usually do that. I usually go ahead and tuck the latches in using the tool. I want to show you how to tell if you've tucked the latches. So these, when it has 2 stitches, those are the ones that need to be tucked. So if all of these that are down only have 1 stitch, that means that they were knit last time. They were not the ones that needed to be tucked. So if you see this, that means you have not yet tucked your latches and you still need to do so. But if the last 2 needles pushed down have 2 loops each, that does mean that you have already tucked those stitches. You're going to continue lifting 1 and lowering 2 until you've pushed down 1 needle past each the main mark and the halfway mark. I want to share a couple of tips. One is about tension. You want to hold the yarn as the first stitch of each row is knitting so that there's not a lot of slack, because you don't want a gap. You know, it can create a hole right there at the turn. But then after that first stitch catches, you really don't want any tension on the rest of the row because it can be too tight for when you try to hang the hem. The other tip, when you have raised needles, like we do, if you're not careful, they can get caught they can get partly lowered and then they'll get stuck by the V-cams. So if ever you have a time when the cylinder won't turn, the first thing to check is that all of the needles are fully raised. As you're cranking on these back and forth rows, you don't want there to be a lot of looseness right at the first stitch, because then you can create holes in your sock. But after that, for cranking the rest of the row, you really don't want any tension. So here we are coming up on the main mark and the halfway mark. Continuing to raise your heel forks as necessary, although it's not usually as necessary on the return as it was when you were lifting the stitches back and forth, lifting the needles back and forth. So here on this row, I have just hit the main mark. But remember, we're going one past the main mark. I'm lifting one. I'm sorry, that was the halfway mark. We are just going one past the halfway mark too. And then we're going to push these down. So then we'll be right up to the main mark. Lift one. Now on the first side here at 9 o'clock and the halfway mark, we're going to push down 2, and now we're one past the main mark. So we're going to crank around like usual this time. All right, but here we are on the last one. This is very critical. We're going to lift here at 9 o'clock. We're only going to crank halfway. We're going to push these last 2 down. It's a good reminder to always know what's coming next with this pattern, because if you crank too far, sometimes it's very hard to go back. All right, so we're going to crank until our main mark is at 9 o'clock, halfway mark is at 3 o'clock, and then stop. Very important. Now we are ready to hang the toe. Visit us at deanandbean.com and please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.